The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with anticipation. Representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the massive amphitheater, their attention focused on the holographic display at the center. Today marked humanity's formal introduction to the galactic community, but the mood was far from welcoming. Admiral James Miller stood straight-backed and proud as he led the small delegation of human representatives. His weathered face showed no reaction to the whispers and sneers that echoed through the chamber. Behind him, the hologram showed Earth's space fleet, a collection of vessels that appeared almost toy-like compared to the massive warships of other species. "These are your defensive forces." High Counselor Reed's voice dripped with contempt. The tall, blue-skinned alien gestured at the display. "We count barely 50 ships. The smallest member worlds maintain fleets in the thousands." Miller cleared his throat. "We believe in quality over quantity, High Counselor." Laughter rippled through the chamber. A reptilian delegate from the Warrior Crest Empire rose from his seat. "Quality? Your vessels are smaller than our scout ships. How do you expect to defend your territory with such inadequate forces?" "We manage," Miller replied simply, his calm demeanor unsettling several of the more observant council members. The High Counselor's assistant, leaned forward. Something about the human ships bothered him. Their design was unlike anything he'd seen before, compact, with strange seams running along their hulls. But before he could voice his concerns, Reed waved him to silence. "The Council has reviewed your application for membership," Reed announced. "While we acknowledge Earth's achievement of faster-than-light travel, we find your civilization lacking. You will be classified as a protectorate species until you can demonstrate proper military capability." Miller's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened slightly. "With respect, High Counselor, we decline protectorate status. Earth will remain independent." More laughter filled the chamber. A representative from the technologically advanced ring world stood up. "Independent? With that tiny fleet, you would be defenseless against even minor pirates." "I suggest you reconsider," Reed said. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. Many would take advantage of such vulnerability." Miller exchanged glances with his team. "Is that a threat, High Counselor?" "Merely an observation of reality." Reed's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The Council's protection is a generous offer. Only a fool would reject it." The human admiral stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "In my experience, High Counselor, appearances can be deceiving. We came here hoping for peaceful cooperation, but we are prepared for any outcome." The council members stirred uneasily. There was something in Miller's tone, a quiet confidence that seemed at odds with Earth's apparent weakness. "Are you implying a threat of your own, Admiral?" Reed asked incredulously. "With your toy ships?" Miller smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "Not at all. I'm simply stating a fact. Humanity has survived countless wars and challenges. We've learned to be creative. Creativity will not save you from modern weapons," the Crest Empire delegate growled. "Perhaps." Miller turned to leave. "But I suggest you look more closely at our ships before making final judgments. Good day, council members." As the human delegation departed, Tom again tried to speak to Reed about his concerns. The design anomalies in the human ships suggested something he couldn't quite grasp, but the High Counselor was already moving on to other matters, dismissing Earth as an insignificant problem. In the corridor outside, Miller's second-in-command spoke quietly. "They took the bait, sir." "Indeed they did." Miller's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "How long before their sensors detect the truth?" "At their current level of scanning, they'll never see it coming." The Admiral nodded as they boarded their shuttle. Behind them, the Council continued their session, unaware that they had just made perhaps the greatest military miscalculation in galactic history. The tiny fleet they had mocked carried secrets that would soon reshape the balance of power throughout known space. As their shuttle departed, Miller sent a simple message to Earth Command. "Phase 1 complete. They suspect nothing. 2 weeks after the disastrous council meeting, Tom sat in his dimly lit office, surrounded by holographic displays of human ship schematics. As the council's chief technical analyst, something had been bothering him since that first encounter, and he couldn't let it go. "Computer, enhance section Delta 7 again," he muttered, leaning forward to study the strange patterns in the hull plating. The more he looked, the less sense it made. The ship's outer shells seemed to be made of overlapping layers, like the scales of an ancient creature, but with geometric precision that suggested a deeper purpose. A quiet chime announced the arrival of his old friend, Dr. Mark, one of the council's leading xenotechnologists, still obsessing over those human vessels. "Look at this," Tom pointed to one of the displays. "Their power readings make no sense. The energy signatures we're detecting are far too low for ships of that size." Mark frowned, moving closer to examine the data. Could their technology just be inefficient? That's what everyone assumes. But what if? Tom's fingers flew across the controls, bringing up a new set of scans. What if we're not seeing everything? These seams in the hull, they're not just decorative. They're perfect geometrical patterns, repeated across every ship in their fleet. Some kind of cultural design preference, Mark suggested, but his voice held doubt. "No." Tom overlaid several scanning frequencies. "The internal space of these ships doesn't match their external dimensions. There are gaps, spaces our sensors can't penetrate." A warning light flashed on Tom's desk. Someone was accessing his research files. Moments later, High Counselor Reed stormed into the office, his face dark with anger. "Explain why you're wasting council resources on these pointless investigations," Reed demanded. Tom stood his ground. "Sir, these human ships aren't what they appear to be. Their design contradicts every principle of spacecraft construction we know. They're building them inside out." "Inside out?" Reed scoffed. "What nonsense is this? Look here." Tom projected a larger model. "Standard ships are built from a central core outward. But these human vessels, it's as if they've taken a larger ship and somehow folded it in on itself." Mark's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Like those paper art forms humans call origami, but on a massive scale." "Impossible," Reed dismissed. "No material could withstand such manipulation." "That we know of," Tom countered. "But their hull composition includes elements we've never seen before. And these energy readings," he highlighted several areas, "they suggest massive power systems in standby mode, waiting to be activated." Reed's expression wavered slightly. "What are you suggesting?" "I believe their fleet is more than it appears. Much more. These ships could be capable of transformation, expansion. What we're seeing might be their compact travel configuration." A tense silence filled the office. Reed stared at the displays, his earlier dismissal giving way to unease. "If you're right, the tiny fleet could be the largest armada we've ever encountered," Tom finished quietly. "Just fold it up." Reed shook his head, recovering his composure. "Preposterous. Even if such technology were possible, no species could keep it secret for so long. Continue your analysis if you must, but do not spread these ridiculous theories." As Reed left, Mark turned to Tom. "You're really sure about this? Look at their admiral's behavior in the council. He wasn't worried or offended by our mockery. He was amused." Tom brought up footage from the meeting. "They wanted us to underestimate them. But why? If they have such advanced technology. That's what worries me." Tom shut down the displays one by one. "They're preparing for something. And we're playing right into their hands." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Miller received a heavily encrypted transmission from his network of informants. "Council analysts discovering design principles. Recommend accelerating timeline." Miller smiled, watching as his fleet performed their daily maneuvers, each ship moving with perfect precision, their true nature still hidden from prying eyes. "Let them discover what they will," he replied. "By the time they understand, It will be too late. The pieces were in motion. Soon, the galaxy would learn why humanity had chosen to build their ships this way, and why they had kept their true capabilities hidden for so long. The border dispute began with something seemingly trivial: a council mining vessel straying into what humans claimed as their territory. But as Admiral Miller watched the situation unfold from the bridge of his command ship, he knew this was no accident. "They're testing us," he said quietly, studying the tactical display. The mining ship had ignored 3 warnings to withdraw, and now a council escort fleet was approaching, led by the same Crest Empire commander who had mocked Earth's forces in the council chamber. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a message from the council fleet." A holographic image of Commander Rex appeared, his reptilian features set in a sneer. "This is council-sanctioned mining activity. Remove your patrol vessels immediately." Miller kept his voice level. "You're 20 light-years inside Earth space, Commander. Our borders were clearly established in the recognition treaties." "Treaties with a backwater world carry little weight," Rex replied. "The Council has determined these resources are vital to galactic stability. We are claiming them under emergency provisions." Behind Miller, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their hands hovering over controls that the Council's sensors couldn't even detect. They had trained for this moment, knowing it would come eventually. "Commander," Miller said, "I'm giving you one final opportunity to withdraw. This is a peaceful request for compliance with established boundaries." The Crest commander laughed, the sound echoing across the bridge. "Or what? You'll attack us with your toy ships. I count 30 council vessels against your patrol of 5. Be reasonable, Admiral." Miller's first officer leaned close. "Sir, all ships report ready status. Transformation protocols standing by." "Not yet," Miller murmured. Then, louder, "Commander Rex, please convey a message to the Council. Earth will not surrender its sovereignty. Any aggressive action will be met with appropriate force. The Council warned you about the dangers of independence." Rex's image flickered as his fleet moved into attack formation. "Now you will learn that lesson firsthand. All ships target their lead vessel. Let's show these humans what real warships can do." Miller stood, his calm demeanor unchanged. "All ships, defensive pattern Delta. No provocative actions." He turned to his tactical officer. "Record everything. Let history show who fired first." The Council fleet opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space. The human ships performed evasive maneuvers with startling agility, but made no move to return fire. "Their weapons are having minimal effect, sir," the tactical officer reported. "Hull integrity at 98%. Rex's frustration was visible. "Impossible. Increase power to all weapons. They must have some hidden shielding technology." "Sir," Miller's first officer whispered, "the Council's Central Command is ordering them to stand down. They're ignoring the order." Miller nodded. "As expected. Commander Rex is about to give us exactly what we need." He opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships, prepare for Phase 2. But hold until my mark." The Council ships pressed their attack, their formation tightening as they tried to overwhelm the human vessels with sheer firepower. Rex's voice boomed across the command channel. "See how they hide behind their shields. They don't even dare to fight back." "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "they've committed their entire fleet to the attack. No reserves." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "And that's their last mistake. All ships, execute Protocol Prometheus. Authorization code, Origami Rising." The human ships suddenly stopped evading. As the Council fleet closed in for what they thought would be the killing blow, Miller sent one final message to Rex. "Commander, you should have looked more closely at our tiny ships." Rex's confused expression was the last thing they saw before the transformation began. The Council fleet was about to learn why humanity had spent decades perfecting the art of dimensional engineering, and why their ships had been designed to hide their true nature until exactly the right moment. "All hands," Miller announced, battle stations. Show them what humanity can do. The time for hiding was over. The galaxy was about to witness the true power of Earth's fleet, and nothing would ever be the same. Commander Rex watched in stunned disbelief as the human ships began to change. The seemingly small vessels started unfolding like blooming flowers of steel and energy, their hulls splitting along those mysterious seams that had puzzled Council analysts for weeks. "Impossible," he whispered, as his tactical display struggled to keep up with the transformation. The 5 human ships were expanding, sections rotating and extending with impossible precision. What had appeared to be simple hull plating revealed itself as densely packed layers of weapons, sensor arrays, and armored panels. "Sir," his sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. "Their mass readings, they're increasing exponentially. The smallest ship is now larger than our heaviest cruiser." Miller's voice came across all channels, calm as ever. "Consider this a practical demonstration of human engineering, Commander. Our ships aren't small, they're compressed. Where 5 modest vessels had been, now stood 5 massive warships, each bristling with weapon systems that had been cunningly concealed within their folded structure. The human flagship alone had tripled in size, its hull now revealing row upon row of weapon ports that had been hidden in dimensional pockets. "All ships, open fire," Rex ordered, but his command came too late. The human vessels struck first, their weapon systems already perfectly aligned from their transformation sequence. Precision strikes disabled the engines of half the Council fleet in the first volley. The human ships moved with impossible agility for their size, their modular design allowing them to shift configuration even in combat. "This is what we kept hidden," Miller broadcast as his flagship split into 3 autonomous sections, each operating as a separate attack platform. "While you built bigger ships, we learned to build smarter ones." Rex's tactical officer screamed in frustration as his targeting systems failed to lock onto the constantly changing human vessels. "They're reconfiguring faster than we can track. Each section operates independently." The Council fleet's rigid formation, so impressive moments ago, now worked against them. They had trained to fight conventional battles against conventional ships. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for vessels that could transform from corvettes to dreadnoughts in seconds, then split apart into swarms of smaller attack craft. "Status report," Rex demanded. 12 ships disabled, sir. 5 more have lost weapons. They're herding us into a kill box." Miller's voice came again. "Commander Rex, your ships are trapped. Surrender now, and we can avoid further bloodshed." But the Crest Commander's pride wouldn't allow it. "Never. All remaining ships concentrate fire on their flagship." The Council vessels fired everything they had, and watched in horror as the human flagship simply split apart, letting the barrage pass harmlessly through the space where it had been. The separated sections then recombined in a different configuration, this one bristling with counter-battery weapons. "Final warning," Miller announced. "Your weapons are ineffective. Your engines are mostly disabled. Don't force us to demonstrate our full capabilities." In the Council fleet's command center, Rex stared at his tactical display in despair. The 5 human ships had effectively become 15 separate combat units, each one still larger than his vessels. The mysterious gaps in their sensor readings now made sense. They had been the spaces needed for the transformation sequence. "Sir," his first officer whispered, "Central Command is ordering an immediate surrender. They're saying we've provoked something we don't understand." Rex slumped in his command chair as the full magnitude of their mistake became clear. They had dismissed humanity as primitive, laughed at their small fleet, and never once considered why such an obviously intelligent species would field such seemingly inadequate forces. "This is Commander Rex," he finally broadcast. We surrender." As the Council ships powered down their weapons, Miller allowed himself a small smile. "A wise choice, Commander. Perhaps now the Council will be more interested in those diplomatic talks we suggested." The human ships began to fold back into their compact configuration, But now everyone knew what they really were. The age of underestimating humanity was over, and a new chapter in galactic history had begun. In the debris-strewn space of the battlefield, the tiny fleet had proven itself to be anything but small, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the aftermath of the border incident, the Galactic Council's main engineering facility buzzed with frantic activity. Teams of the galaxy's brightest minds pored over sensor data from the battle, trying to understand exactly what they had witnessed. Tom stood before the assembled council, his earlier warnings now vindicated in the most dramatic way possible. Behind him, holographic displays showed detailed breakdowns of the human ship's transformation sequences. As I suspected, he explained, their vessels are essentially space-going puzzles. Each hull plate, each system, each component is designed to fold and lock into multiple configurations. They've mastered what they call dimensional compression technology. High Counselor Reed, his earlier arrogance gone, leaned forward. Explain it in simple terms. How did they hide such massive ships in plain sight? Tom brought up a new display. Think of it like this. They found a way to layer space itself. Each section of their ships exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. When compressed, these layers stack impossibly close together. When deployed, they unfold into normal space. Dr. Mark added, the energy readings we detected were so low because most of their systems were essentially stored in compressed space. They weren't running at full power. They were hibernating, waiting to be unleashed. A military advisor raised his hand. But the materials needed for such construction, the structural stress alone should tear the ships apart. That's where human ingenuity truly shines, Tom replied. They've developed metamaterials that become stronger under dimensional stress. The more their ships transform, the more durable they become. It's completely counterintuitive to everything we know about engineering. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Reed called for quiet. How many configurations can each ship achieve? We've identified at least 30 distinct configurations for their standard vessels. Their flagship, Tom paused, bringing up new data. We're still counting. It seems capable of splitting into autonomous sections, each with its own set of transformations. The computational power needed just to coordinate these changes is staggering. And their weapons? Someone asked. Integrated into the folding structure itself. When compressed, weapon ports stack on top of each other, occupying the same relative space. When deployed, they unfold into multiple firing positions. One weapon becomes 20, yet requires storage space for only one. Mark stepped forward. The real genius is in the control systems. They've developed artificial intelligence specifically to manage these transformations. Each ship's computer can calculate optimal configurations for any tactical situation in microseconds. Reed rubbed his temples. How did we miss this? How did they develop such technology in isolation? They didn't work in isolation, Tom explained. We did exactly what they wanted. We ignored them. While we focused on building bigger ships, they focused on building smarter ones. Their entire technological development took a different path than ours. A strategic analyst spoke up. The implications are enormous. A human fleet could hide in plain sight, appearing harmless until the moment of attack. Traditional force calculations become meaningless. Exactly, Tom agreed. And we still don't know their full capabilities. The transformations we witnessed might be just the beginning. The council chamber fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. They had mockingly called it the tiny fleet, never suspecting that humanity had revolutionized the very concept of space warfare. Reed finally spoke again. How do we defend against such technology? That's just it, Tom replied. Our entire defensive doctrine is based on fixed configurations and known capabilities. The humans can adapt their ships mid-battle, changing not just tactics but the very nature of their vessels. We're not just facing superior technology. We're facing an entirely new paradigm of warfare. As if to emphasize his point, a new tactical analysis appeared on the main display. showing how a single human ship could theoretically match an entire Council battle group through rapid reconfiguration. "We need to rethink everything," Tom concluded. "Our shipbuilding, our tactics, our entire understanding of space combat. The humans haven't just changed the game, they've invented a new one entirely." The Council members looked at each other, the full weight of their miscalculation finally clear. The tiny fleet had turned out to be one of the most powerful forces in known space, and they had handed humanity the perfect opportunity to prove it. The Grand Strategic Command Center of the Council military buzzed with tension. Fleets of warships from 17 different member species had gathered for what they believed would be an overwhelming show of force against humanity. Over 2,000 vessels formed up in attack formations, their commanders confident that sheer numbers would overcome Earth's transforming ships. "Let them see what real military power looks like," General Dax announced to his assembled commanders. "We'll crush their parlor tricks with overwhelming force." But Admiral Miller, watching from the bridge of his flagship, showed no concern at the massive armada facing his 30 vessels. "All ships, execute Formation Lotus. Remember your training." The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, their ships beginning a complex dance of transformations. Each vessel shifted through multiple configurations, creating an ever-changing defensive screen that made targeting nearly impossible. "Sir," Miller's tactical officer reported, "Council fleet is launching their first wave. 300 ships, heavy assault pattern." Miller nodded, "Just as expected. Execute Protocol Hydra." His 30 ships suddenly became 90 as each vessel split into 3 autonomous sections. The Council fleet's carefully planned attack formations began to fall apart as they tried to track targets that refused to maintain a single shape or size. "Impossible," General Dax shouted as his tactical displays became chaos. "How are they blocking our targeting systems?" The answer came in the form of a devastating counterattack. The human ships transformed again, this time into configurations specifically designed to exploit the gaps in the Council fleet's formation. Precision strikes disabled engines and weapons across entire squadrons without destroying a single vessel. "They're not even trying to kill us," one of Dax's officers realized. "They're just neutralizing us." Miller's voice broadcast across all frequencies. "Your ships are built for straight-line combat, General. Ours are built to adapt. Surrender now and spare your crews further humiliation." But Dax wasn't finished. "Launch all remaining waves. Overwhelm them with numbers." The Council fleet surged forward, over 1,000 ships moving to engage. For a moment, it seemed the human vessels would be swamped by sheer volume of fire. Then Miller gave his next order. "All ships, execute Protocol Phoenix." The transformation that followed left even veteran Council commanders speechless. The human vessels combined into larger units, massive battle stations that dwarfed anything in the Council fleet. What had been 30 ships, then 90 sections, merged into 5 enormous fortresses, each bristling with weapons. "Target analysis complete," Miller's tactical officer announced. "We can disable 93% of their remaining fleet with a single synchronized volley." In the Council Command Center, Dax watched helplessly as his tactical computers confirmed the analysis. His mighty armada, the largest assembled in 50 years, was completely at the mercy of what he had dismissed as a tiny fleet. "General," his executive officer whispered, "Central Command is ordering an immediate ceasefire. They're saying we never understood what we were fighting." Miller's voice came again. "Your ships are powerful, General, but they're inflexible. You built them to fight the last war. We built ours to fight any war." To demonstrate his point, the human fortresses suddenly split apart, reconfiguring into swarms of smaller vessels that darted between the Council ships, tapping them with precise, disabling shots. "Stand down," Dax finally ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "All ships, power down weapons." As the Council fleet went dark, Miller allowed his ships to return to their standard configurations. The message was clear. Humanity could match any tactical situation, adapt to any threat, and they had barely shown a fraction of their capabilities. Let this be a lesson, Miller broadcast. Humanity doesn't want war. We developed this technology, hoping we'd never need it. But if forced to fight, we will do so with every advantage we can create. The battle was over. The Council fleet, supposedly invincible in its size and power, had been systematically taken apart by ships that refused to follow the conventional rules of space combat. In the debris-strewn battlefield, the tiny fleet had proven that innovation and adaptability would always triumph over brute force and rigid thinking. The galaxy would never be the same. 1 month after the decisive battle, the Galactic Council chamber was packed for a historic session. Where once there had been mockery and contempt, now there was respect, and more than a little fear as Admiral Miller took the speaker's podium. Honored council members, he began, I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a representative of humanity seeking peaceful cooperation. The recent conflict was regrettable, but perhaps necessary to reach true understanding. High Counselor Reed, humbled by recent events, stood to address the chamber. We have reviewed the peace terms proposed by Earth. They are surprisingly reasonable. We don't seek dominance, Miller explained. We developed our transforming ships as a defensive measure, a way to protect ourselves while appearing non-threatening. All we want is recognition of our sovereignty and fair treatment in galactic affairs. Tom, now promoted to Chief of Technological Exchange, stepped forward with a series of holographic displays. Human engineers have agreed to share some of their basic folding technology principles, not for weapons, but for peaceful applications. The displays showed cargo ships that could compress their holds, space stations that could reconfigure for different purposes, and rescue vessels that could adapt to any emergency. The council members leaned forward, suddenly seeing the technology in a new light. Already, Tom continued, we're seeing how this technology could revolutionize civilian space travel. Imagine ships that can compress for long-distance travel, then expand into comfortable living spaces at their destination. Miller nodded. This was always the primary purpose of our research. The military applications were a necessary precaution, but not our main goal. An elder council member raised his hand. But surely you must understand our concern. Your ships could hide anywhere, appear harmless until the moment of attack. Just as your massive fleets could overwhelm any world that resisted you, Miller countered. Power always carries responsibility. We're offering to work together, to find a balance that benefits everyone. The chamber erupted in discussion as members debated the implications. Finally, Reed called for order. The vote is unanimous. Earth is granted full council membership, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Miller smiled. Then let me share something we've been saving for this moment. He activated a new hologram, showing a massive space station unlike anything the council had seen. This is Liberty Station. It's been under construction in compressed form near Earth. Once deployed, it will serve as a joint human-council research facility. The station began to unfold in the hologram, sections blooming outward in an intricate dance of engineering. Council members gasped as they realized its true scale, larger than any existing facility in known space. We've already selected science teams from 50 council worlds, Miller continued. Together, we'll explore the full potential of dimensional engineering, not for war, but for exploration, commerce, and cultural exchange. Tom added, the station can reconfigure to accommodate any species, any research need. It's a physical symbol of our commitment to cooperation. Reed stepped down from his podium and approached Miller. We mocked your tiny fleet because we didn't understand, because we were too arrogant to look deeper. That ends today. The formal treaty signing that followed was broadcast across the galaxy. The human delegation stood proud but humble, while council members showed genuine enthusiasm for this new era of cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, Miller's first officer whispered, should we tell them about the other technological advances we've been working on? Miller shook his head, smiling. One revelation at a time. Let them get used to the ships first. There's no rush. We have all the time in the galaxy now. The tiny fleet had changed everything, not through conquest, but by demonstrating a better way forward. As delegates from across the galaxy mingled and shared ideas, the future seemed brighter than ever. In Earth orbit, Liberty Station began its first transformation, unfolding like a metallic flower reaching for the stars. It was a testament to human ingenuity and a promise of what could be achieved when fear gave way to understanding. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had hoped for all along.